Welcome to the Environmental Health Podcast series, where science meets the real world. I'm Jeff Moody, retired U.S. Navy Environmental Health Officer, teaching associate professor, and program director for the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health at Old Dominion University. This series is designed to explore the environmental health challenges that shape our communities, our workplaces, our food systems, and ultimately our lives. From infectious disease outbreaks and food safety to water quality, vector-borne diseases, toxic exposures, emergency response, and public health preparedness, environmental health professionals work behind the scenes every day to prevent problems before they become crises. Here we take complex public health and environmental health issues and break them down into conversations that are engaging, practical, and grounded in science. We'll talk with professionals, students, researchers, and community leaders tackling what we call wicked environmental health problems, the messy, interconnected challenges that don't have easy answers. Whether you're a student exploring careers in science and public health, a practitioner in the field, or just someone curious about how the environment impacts human health, this podcast is for you. So sit back, stay curious, and join us as we explore the science, strategies, and stories behind environmental health. Welcome to the Environmental Health Podcast series. I have today a distinguished guest, a friend of mine who works for Lipton Tea and Infusions, and I want to welcome him today about working on our EH profession series. And this is a understanding what we do in the environmental health profession across all different sectors. And I thank you, Lee, for joining us today. Tell me about yourself and your background and how you got into Lipton's program.
Once again, man, it's a pleasure to be here. Great friend, mentor, served together, and it's an honor to be in this seat today. Retired Navy as an EHO and wanted to go corporate and work in food safety, quality, try to align my skill set when I was serving to fit in the corporate world. And that's how that opportunity interviewed for that job, got it, but it was mainly due to the leadership we learned throughout being a commissioned officer. Absolutely. And dealing with functional teams, whether it was civilian, military, different specialties, scientists, engineers, medical professionals, tying it all together. So my boss saw a lot of that and said, this will be a good fit. He has the background. He's been in leadership roles. And so that's how I got started at Lipton.
How'd you find those type of work? I mean, we retired pretty close to the same amount of time. How'd you find that particular position? Were you seeking that out?
Actually, yes. I was on LinkedIn, subscribed, got a premium subscription, and saw Lipton come up. And I was like, wow, looked at the job description. I could do this job. I saw some buzzwords in some keywords. And got the role. It was easy. I went out and looked for positions that I know where I could be beneficial and essential to an organization. And I think I was confident in applying for that because I could actually fulfill that position.
So tell me about your background in your military career as an environmental health officer so we can share those kind of foundational steps.
Oh, absolutely. Health service collegiate program.
Yeah.
Grad degree. Didn't really know anything about environmental health. Heard about it, but it sounded interested because it was a way to give back and apply sciences. Had a STEM background in engineering, but really this allowed me to I could be involved in water quality. I could provide risk assessments. I could make public health, give public health a voice. And that was it really.
What drew you to the environmental health? I know it's part of it is the HSCP is part of the Navy's program to pay for your school and your education and get direct commission. But however, finding that niche about environmental health, what drove you to exactly? Most people don't know about it, right?
Right. I'll tell you what, Jeff, one of the biggest things that drove me to environmental health was it was like a field where service members, even higher ups, strategic level, operational level, it was an area that was forgotten about, like the impact of forces, the impact of mission, how an infectious disease, water not fit for consumption could impact a force other than the enemy. So it was the unknown enemy, I should say. And it's like, okay, how do we bring attention to something that don't get a lot of? Because it's a quiet field. It's when it's quiet, everything working right, but when you hear about it, something went wrong. So, but how can we proactively integrate public health and give it a voice to the service members? Like, oh, vaccinations are important. You know what? Clean water is important.
Right.
And surveillance on something,
Yeah.
even in peacetime, at wartime. And it was just force health, and it's just bringing it all together, the health of a force. If we have a healthy force, we have a lethal force. So that kind of brought it together. And, working with Marines, and you still had that piece to where you could work with your civilian counterparts on issues. You could work with state employees, federal. It was the best of both worlds, because you could understand the civilian sector as well as the military and tie it all together and realize that, wow, we're doing the same job, and the science is the science regardless of what entity.
Right.
It's a smaller community, and your impact would be noticed in a small community.
Tell me, when transitioning into this new role at Lipton Tea and Infusions, how did your background really connect you to be able to conduct that type of work? And then also tell me what is a typical day like in that job?
Okay. There's a lot of moving parts at Lipton. It's a manufacturing operation. With the engineering background, understanding the engineering principles of how things move, how things work, in automation, manufacturing. Wasn't an expert in it, but I had that background, educational background at least.
Right.
But then what prepared me for the technical job was an environmental health officer.
Yeah.
My boss said, you're going to be a jack of all trades. And I said, man, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
As you know, being an EHO, you're leading functional teams, you're teaching risk communication, and that prepared me for the technical job. Just having the MPH and environmental health science
Sure.
gave me the technical expertise to succeed as a food safety and quality lead within the organization and entities. That I would say an officer in the Navy prepared me to look outside the box and bring all that together. So, and I think that's what prepared me to operate on that level within Lipton. It got the technical expertise, but Lipton needed a leader, someone that could step in, fresh eyes, call out a problem, see a problem, bring a solution, and communicate risk.
Day in your life as a Lipton Tea and Infusions food safety and quality lead, what does your typical day look like?
That's an easy one. It can change daily. Just it's public health, it's environmental health. So a typical day, we look at ensuring our brands, which are Lipton, Tazo, Pucka, all our brands are what our third-party manufacturers create for us, making sure that the integrity of the product remain intact, whether that be, is the lot code date correct? Did we source from the right sourcing agent? In the supply chain, so now public health is getting in the supply chain. Is the contaminants, did we pass, a certificate of analysis on contaminant testing? Did it? Okay.
Contaminants would be considered
Maybe some heavy metals, pesticides,
yeah,
on that to make sure, because we're sourcing from all over the world. Because most of our tea comes from Argentina.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Wherever that tea starts, wherever that process from procurement starts,
Yeah.
that's where public health is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like really the farm to table.
If there's a taste profile that's off, if there's foreign matter, anything like that, I have to address those issues with our team, consumer complaint team, to get the right verbiage. So going back to the risk communication, because as you know, if something doesn't taste right, doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
You could have tasted something to alter the chemistry in a taste profile. So we mitigate risk. What's urgent to a consumer?
Yeah.
We look at it. This is not a risk, health risk.
So you mentioned that Lipton, a major manufacturer here in Hampton Roads. Can you tell me what Lipton does? As this is, I guess, the centralized manufacturing area here.
It's the only plant in North America that manufactures tea. So my title is Quality Lead for North America, which encompasses food safety, food defense, and it's all over the U.S., the Suffolk, Virginia, supplies North America with Tazo
Yeah.
tea as well as Lipton brands, to include specialty teas, is right here in their backyard, right here in Suffolk.
That's outstanding. Yeah. So that's all the sourcing from multiple countries and international for the tea leaf and all the other parts of the tea that make up the tea. Can you explain what makes up tea in multiple forms?
Oh
And
wow, this is a good one. This is going definitely. So I definitely know our research and innovation team can definitely go down this
Yeah.
road, because when I first started, we have a boot camp to just tell you all about tea.
right.
There's a tea lingo, tea 101. Black tea and green tea came from the same plant. You realize like the science and the chemistry behind it, and there's a lot of we have my boss is a chemical engineer and a chemist, and
Oh,
get
absolutely.
taste profiles, taste tea to make sure it hits the right odor, to your point, meets the sensory parameters and everything. It's an art, it's a science. I was humbled really quick at the knowledge and expertise of other scientists. It made me just appreciate the scientific
Yeah.
disciplines even more. It's like, wow, even from contaminants. And we with water testing, we have parameters, and with drinking water
Sure.
standards, there's standards and goals and limits associated with how we test.
Yeah, your quality levels for your product.
It's interesting because the tea, it's a whole. I mean, you can watch the tea process, and probably that will satisfy the requirements for general chemistry. What it goes through, drying of the tea leaves, and it is a science. Those are tours that we can set up and educate you on, or students, if they want to come by, set up and just look at that
No,
process.
we're looking forward to that partnership with our students to be able to not only visit field plants and be able to understand some of the work behind the scenes, but definitely getting that more, even for my own self, being like my curiosity fulfilled. I think in this field of environmental health or public health in general, you have to be curious, and you have to dive into things that requires you those level of granularity when it comes
Absolutely.
to organic chemistry and the profiles, odor and senses, fate and transport of.
Absolutely.
As I look to going further into your career, what are the foundational sciences necessary for you to be able to not work in it every day, but understand those principles?
Chemistry, definitely organic chemistry, because you're dealing with water activity and moisture.
Yeah.
We run labs, so definitely your hard sciences, definitely your chemistry, and even with the equipment, some engineering. You mentioned fate transport. That's a good one, because at sourcing where tea is grown, there's folks that look at, is there runoff? Is there, in my opinion, I think that's one of your most important sciences.
It's part about how you communicate. That's really what this is all about. How do we communicate to the public what we do behind the scenes and why it matters, so we can not only educate the public in this medium of podcasting and social media, but also be able to educate people that maybe have interests in this field, which that's often not really known. And that's the biggest challenge, at least in the program for ourselves, is like putting it out there and sharing those stories like yourself and the professions and background to be able to help people find a pathway and start their journey and interest in that.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned something earlier about other courseworks, Jeff. I would say that MPH would probably be the bread and butter, or maybe undergrad or graduate level, because we look at epidemiology as disease trends, or looking for but also with the consumer complaints.
Yep.
I'm dealing with Power BI and histograms, epi curves, graphs to define what those numbers mean.
Yeah, data analytics.
Data analytics.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, being able to use metrics to tell a story,
Absolutely.
able to portray what risks may be, or what the issues are.
Right.
So, and that's not a exact science. There is art involved in that as well. So being able to use those, think of it as like a legal defense. You need enough body of evidence
Absolutely.
Not just
That's
say,
a good way of putting it.
not just say, hey, this is what I think happened. You have the evidence to be able to tell the story. And
Absolutely.
so that's the biggest challenge that we have today in public health.
I agree.
Is that sometimes the facts are not enough, and being able to explain that with trust and credibility and connection with all those other pieces that come along with communicating to a layman's public.
And that's one of the reasons I was brought on too, because during my interview, questions came up about the scenarios. Give me a time when you had to brief.
Those are great questions, right?
And sometimes, Jeff, as you know, your recommendation, leadership may not take your recommendation. But that's okay. And you got to be able to understand that you're an advisor. I'm an advisor for my boss, who's the global quality lead, who's overseeing continents, who's those that report in to her in Asia and Europe. We have to be able to communicate that and look at bigger picture. Well, 93% said there's a taste profile with this, but I'm looking and I got to now do an investigation, like a foodborne, I wouldn't say a foodborne illness, it was just a public health investigation. Okay, out of these taste profiles, how many went past the quality date? I mean, the product is safe. What is an issue to Lipton? What could be bad for business, for marketing, for food safety, food defense? Out of this chart, this 15 slide chart, what is the elevator speech?
Yeah, that's the most difficult thing, to be able to risk communicate to decision makers, is being able to tell your story in a very short and succinct manner. You work through these life challenges and growth. That is our bread and butter.
Yes. Yes.
Whether it's you may risk communicate it poorly, because it's not often. We've all had our challenges.
Right.
That's part of growth. But be able to get that information quickly out to a policymaker. It could be government, could be your representative in the state, at congressional level. All these parts that we're doing, we're constantly communicating on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. To your point, we communicate because if you're a food manufacturer, distributor, you have these things called audits, and you're in everybody's home.
Yeah. I mean, I bet you today, if you open your shelf, you have something that's related to Lipton.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Transcends all generations. If you're a boomer, chances are you're drinking yellow black tea. If you're a millennial, it's Tazo.
Yeah.
A quality lead, quality professional, food safety professional. This is the best. This is the decision that's scientific defensible right now.
What skills or habits that you have to hone to get not necessarily comfortable, but get proficient in being able to pull all that information together, the context, and be able to come up with a sound solution or an executive summary to a decision maker?
That's a great point and a great question, because, and when I came to Lipton, I was telling my boss, we have to be able to put ourselves in the consumer's shoes. Because sometimes we only look from the business side of things and maybe miss the consumer. But I think, one, humility is good, understanding that the answer today might not be the answer 2 weeks from now, because the science is evolving, it's changing, food safety is changing, products go obsolete, products get discontinued, new products come. So you have to stay educated. And what I mean by that, you have to read, you have to talk to colleagues. If I don't know something about risk communicating, I know I serve with you.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, a scientist professor, and we both were EHOs. Let me call. So that's doesn't matter if I work in Lipton. And that makes it easier. Also, owning when you're wrong. I think you're gonna get things wrong, and I don't know is a solid answer.
I've always had this challenge and uniqueness that's related to our profession. It's one of those ones that we got to be on our game 100% every day. The challenge is not being able to put yourself in an I don't know situation. It'll happen, but you have to be on your toes when a question happens that you might not have experienced before, to be able to like, I have an idea of that answer.
Mm-hmm.
However, to make the argument valid, being able to gather more information and evidence to be able to come up with a solution of some sort or an answer to your question. And many times, questions are often asked. The wrong question is asked, or they didn't know how to ask the question to begin with.
Great point.
But at the end of the day, knowing in this profession, it's having the jack of all trades. I always say jack of all trades, master a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
Because we have to be on our toes and do our homework. So
you mentioned a great point about having an answer, being on your A game at all times, because there will come a time, happened in my military career, happened at Lipton, where you get pulled in an office to get your expert. Hey, okay, you're a technical expert. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Okay, now ain't the time. And as a scientist, there's things that we should know. Even a question, how to risk communicate a question. You made a point earlier about sometimes figuring out how they're asking, what they're asking. But then it's like, let me work back and see what this quote. First off, I need to look at the restructure the question they're asking to see if I can answer this. Because if I answer this based on how they ask it, I'm going to be wrong, and we're not going to get to a viable solution. But if I look at the question and it takes time, okay, I see what they're asking here, and then go back to them and rephrase it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, well, I got an answer for you. And always have a reference. Always say something, if you can, have a reference to back up what you're saying. FDA works. FSSC 22000, the International Food Safety Standard, that works. So you realize all these references overlap. So it's your job to take that reference and risk communicate that and put it in it where they can understand it. So that's a skill set I would give back to your initial question. That's a skill that I would recommend every prospective student or even someone that's looking at changing careers.
Yeah. Gather your information. Build your evidence, your knowledge, your body of knowledge and your evidence.
You got one time to lose their trust. You don't get a second. I like to say, you hear the phrase, we're a country of second chances, but sometimes in public health, you got one time. Yeah. It's hard.
And it's almost impossible.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Many people consume tea every day and do not realize there is actually a food safety network or a system behind it. Can you tell me what that food safety, food defense system is involved in just tea production?
Oh, absolutely. So even from farm to table or from source, from procurement to kitchen table to cabinet to vendor, there's a HACCP in place, hazard analysis, critical control point. There's seven steps in that process. But to just summarize those steps up is looking for gaps that are increase the likelihood or increase risk for a foodborne illness. So we have these mechanisms, defenses in place. Say when we procure tea, there's someone from Lipton to go on site to ensure that food defense, the vendors are vetted. There's no cross contamination. And once again, we got our testing laboratory that tests for certain parameters and microbes, heavy metals, looking at that. So that
you send to reference laboratories,
like moisture test, tasting, ensure some basic parameters, mainly to make sure that product's sellable. But what makes this area really great for bringing in things, we have a port here. Yeah. We have multiple ports here. So bill of ladings is the ingredients what they say they are.
Right.
Is a container sealed?
Yeah.
Is a container number?
All the adulterating.
Is the source where we're sourcing from? Is there proper fencing? They got a pest management in place? Yeah. Like
the manufacturing or the production best practices.
Absolutely. You look at your good manufacturing practices, even artwork. Is it halal? Is it certified, whether that be organic, whether that be
Right.
non-GMO products, like all those
Yeah.
fall under quality food defense, food safety.
Yeah.
Because if the artwork is off, then is the tear weight the same in a tea bag?
Yeah.
So you're looking at all that in the manufacturing process.
Wow.
And if any of those things, tea bag, machine split a tea bag,
Yeah.
we have to stop production.
Wow. Really.
Labeling, there's foreign material in a tea bag.
Yeah.
That product gets on a quality hold. So now
A lot. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And we use, software to track different. So that food defense piece to where is so robust to where earlier I said we bring all these people together, these functional teams. So quality is talking to supply chain.
Yeah.
Is looking at their process. Also production. Nothing happens without food safety and quality. We sign off if there's need to be a deviation from a procedure. Quality be the final say on that product, that food.
You're in a manufacturing setting, so all the manufacturing requirements of yes, it's in the building, but it still requires all the same food safety precautions, right? Hairnets, gown, gloves,
beard, gloves, and then especially the product that are high risk. Say if we're bringing in something like a ready to drink, when we did make things like that, then you look at your HACCP for each product. We're looking at a third party manufacturers. We have to ensure that they're up to Lipton standards with FDA, with halal, USDA, pest management, everything outside vendors coming in, because that's where public health is able to bring it all together.
Yeah. So how do you verify those preventive measures, those that are actually working? How do you know that those quality assurance mechanisms or systems that you have in place are being validated?
So one way, Jeff, is because we're not a technical expertise in, say, some of the production, but what we do is we bring production engineers, then we always have continuous improvement that's ahead of us, looking at ways to improve, and then we'll bring, hey, we found a way we could sanitize better. So we bring all these functional leaders to the table. We look at gap, we do gap analysis, and that's when we may argue sciences, but everybody stay in their functional area. But at the end of the day, it comes back to quality. Well, how will this affect the integrity of the product? So bringing in your team to make the decision that you don't have that expertise in.
So are there common misconceptions to the public about food safety in general?
I'll give you one. Organic. So you listen to the public, a lot of public will think, oh, organic is just, FDA just put a label on there. I can tell you firsthand, our process for organic is so strict.
Mm-hmm. How it's grown.
How it's procured, where it's stored, first in, first out. I mean, the food safety, nothing organic can always be stored over something, but nothing can be stored over organic. So it's a very...
Get the organic USDA label that it's organically grown. It has to meet these requirements.
Absolutely. And you have that certification. So if you see, it's not clever marketing, a lot of people, it's just clever marketing. No, it's a real stringent process.
There are still stringent process in non-organic grown.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me, is this difference about safety or exposures when it comes, is it vastly different from organic to non-organic grown things?
Well, I would say food safety is definitely the same. How it's grown may be a little different. Where we're sourcing non-organic, it's still a very strict process. Doesn't mean one's better than the other one from food safety, because a lot of the public may think that just because it's organic, it's a safer product. Well, they're both getting contaminant testing. They're both going through these stringent process. If you buy a non-organic, you can assure that it's a safe product and it's went through quality checks, food safety, labs, and all the way to the consumer, and we're still tracking that product.
Yeah.
Now
There's more steps involved in
there's
that,
more steps
and more
involved.
gates and checks that go along
Yes.
with that.
There's, as I say, there's built-in redundancies in that process. But having seen that process on the line, if a box is off, if a boat, and a boat is where you see like the tea bags in when you open some Lipton. But when you see that and one of those off, if the box is bent too
Yeah.
much, the tea bag, if the just small little things that go into that product from a safety check. I get a consumer complaint. There's foreign matter. There's a faulty lid. There's a whatever the case may be. You look at that as the quality guy. What's going to help me finalize or make that investigation more effective? Give me a lot number. Give me an EAN number. That barcode. Now we can track via batch and look at that. Okay. And tell the customer, hey, we've identified the problem. Thank you for bringing it up. And once again, that goes back to risk communication, because you don't tell the customer, hey, yeah, we just found a lot of this. I'm sorry, but no, that risk communication is still going on. But we would look at, oh yeah, it was this batch.
Yeah.
And we can always do a recall. Like if a product get out there, I have the ability to recall that product.
Yeah. So how does tell me about recalling products of concern? How does that work? And this also ties into like the regulatory agencies and your relationships with them.
We have the ability from local, from the manufacturing, to do recall via software, talk to the DCs. Hey, batch just went out. Once we stop it, if it's at a DC, if that product, and we track that product, hey, it's at a distribution center here in Iowa, just throwing that at. Okay,
Sure.
We hold it there.
Yeah.
And then we can still reach out to FDA. Hey, we got batch number, lot code XXX, batch number this. Here's the date stamp and all used by. It's on this product. But usually when they have the lot number, it tells you exactly where that food product was manufactured. That's when you'll get the recall notices from FDA. We want this removed from the shelf. And you have direct vendor, relationship. Like if I call, if it's in one of just say if it's in Publix, we have a team that works like Publix, Walmart, Costco's to say, hey, X amount of product, this lot code, please remove that from the shelf until further notice. So that process is built to where there's a lot of flexibility, whether it be from FDA, us talking to FDA, us talking to a distribution center, or us talking to the retailer.
Yeah, sounds like it is very connected. Yeah. You're connected to that to be able to immediately respond to any concerns. That's a great thing for the consumer to understand all those checks and balances are in place. Where do you see the challenges in the future when it comes to food safety, with technology and other things that we're experiencing today?
Well, I think as manufacturing, I would even say is producing, and you're going into more of a automation and an artificial intelligence environment. I think that food safety you're still going to have, that will never be replaced. The human element of food safety will never be replaced in food defense. But I do think becoming more innovative in a sense of understanding, whether it be artificial intelligence, automation, supply chain. So if you're just focused on food safety and don't understand supply chain, then you don't understand how to conduct a recall. There may be gaps within the supply chain and understand the consumers. So
the P in public health stands for people. Or politics. But yes.
The automation with the machine, that's the engineer's role. But the challenge to food safety is, well, there's always an issue with manning issue. There's manning issues.
Sure. What can you tell students that maybe looking into this field? What are some necessary tools to be able to have in your toolbox? You already mentioned it. It's like that having multiple understandings in different types of activities and sectors.
When I was an HSCP junior officer, and how when we were stationed together, building relationships. You could take chemistry. You can have the academic platform. That's gonna get you to understand the moisture, water activity, the science behind what you do. But to understand that, to understand that more, I would say effectively, is to build networks, build relationships.
Yeah.
That would be my advice. Get out your comfort zone, make some sacrifices, because the degree is only going to be your foundation.
Yeah. The education part is the foundation, but we are in the people business.
Absolutely.
Whether they're consuming your food or they're being exposed to things, without I like to tell students and people in our field that, at the end of the day, we're solutionists.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Even though it may not be directly related to your skill set,
right?
You're building your teams together to solve problems for
absolutely
everyone. Initially, and as you're growing up, I was the same way. I was not a very good public speaker. I still have challenges today to try to increase my public speaking abilities, but having to get yourself out there, not only talk to the public, but build relationships.
Yeah.
That is a key. Build. I don't know if people understand what Rolodexes are today, but the build that your contact list in your iPhone, that should be pretty deep.
Absolutely. And that's why we're advisors to leadership. I'm going to give you the best method of communication to communicate public health to where you understand it and can make a business decision. In our case, a business decision.
I like to say the art and science of our profession. It's heavily science-based. That is your foundation. But being able to communicate the scientific things to a layman's, whether it's a decision maker or the public, that's where the art comes into play. And through that, you have to, just like anything in art, whether you're drawing stick figures at first, you're learning how to be able to
absolutely
communicate that.
No, that's a great point, because when you look at, and it goes back to when I was interviewed and some of those questions that popped up, it wasn't what was your GPA in chemistry,
Yeah, mine was not that great. I had to take organic twice.
Yeah.
So, but I could teach it today.
Hydrology, and as you know, the ABET and engineering program. Name me a time when you had to make a decision, and that decision you didn't get the outcome you hoped for. And I was like, wow, because sometimes we want to sound like, it's got to be the right answer. You know what? Sometimes you're going to give some recommendations that they're not going to like. This is a take-home point for students that's looking to get in this career field too.
Yeah.
Once you find out, be prepared to, like I said, be ignored, be prepared to, sometimes you might not get the seat at the table and you're the expert. But just know your time's going to come and you're going to have to defend your stance, and take your approach and stand by it. Don't let anybody else waver. As long as your decision, that's what I love about science. It's if you can defend it and it's a solution, you might not invite yourself to the table.
That's right.
Sometimes I got hurt when I'm showing up at this meeting, and my boss is good about that. It's like, hey, Lee, come to this one. You may think, like, why am I in this meeting? Why am I in this meeting? Oh, then it's going to be a nugget. Because somebody else has talked for you, and you don't want that.
Right. Let the experts that are working that be the ones to be able to communicate that.
Absolutely.
Rather than, well, I think it's this way. I can't remember. There's a fallacy. It's called bike shedding. You ever heard of that one? The term? It's a meeting fallacy that when you have these 4 topics, and these 4 topics in a meeting. The first topic is nuclear reactors and power generation. And the second topic might be bike sheds. How many people own bikes? and need a bike shed. They'll spend 45 minutes on a bike shed meeting. And then, of course, there's like coffee machines or getting coffee in the office. The most important thing was power generation and nuclear things. And you look around and, well, I don't have anybody here to speak for that, so we're going to spend on other things that are not priority topics. So every meeting that I've always think, this is a bike shedding meeting, because the people that are supposed to talk about this particular concept are not in this room. So that's a whole point, is by recognizing as a leader, to recognize.
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, I've done that a lot, especially places that I've worked in. Like, we're the wrong people to be talking about this. So
I've actually seen you do that. Yeah, it's like, nope. And be a trusted agent. Be that person that colleagues, not just for me, Lipton Teas and Infusions, have colleagues still reach out to. Just think for the students to pull us back right there. Jeff, I think that the academics is great. It's going to give you the foundation. But getting back to relationships and practice. Public health is a skill set. It's a perishable skill.
Yes.
Understand, get out and go see a food inspection or an audit.
You have to be in the field.
You have to.
Yeah. I would attribute that in other professions, such as the medical field, nursing, physicians, you're laying hands on people, right? Individuals. We're a profession that lays hands on people as well, but we lay hands on populations. Out there, we're connecting what the data says on our magic box with the context of the environment to put together your evidence, put together your case. Without that hands-on thing,
absolutely,
that's hard to do. Absolutely. You can't do that online. You can't learn that way individually online in a profession that requires you to lay hands on population.
And you look at Lipton, Tazo products, just know that product is right here in Suffolk, Virginia.
That's amazing.
That plant.
So for our students, what are some internship opportunities or exposure or certifications you recommend or you would offer to our students here at Old Dominion University?
Certs, I would say for internship, I'll start with internships first. It's always good. We're always looking for talent. We're always looking for extra eyes. You bring fresh eyes, new ideas, and a perspective. Maybe something changed while they were in school and saw something. We get out there, hey, this is a better process. We can do this.
Yeah.
I think just, they can contact me for any type of internships. I just talked to our HR department about summer interns for graduates to really start that program, because that's going to help us market this area.
Absolutely.
Environmental health, and do something like this.
Right here at your home. Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Public health. Try them all out. Look, just once you graduate and you really don't know which area you want to work in, come see Lipton, come see quality, because quality from those that are retired and even military, quality at a manufacturer, a company like Lipton will give you is pretty much what an EHO, an ESO, a food service officer, a public health officer in the Air Force, all those, a PMT put together, running quality. You're doing food defense, food safety, food risk assessments. You're auditing other facilities. You're doing get out and kind of test the waters. Internship, just they can contact me, and we have a plant quality manager as well. I oversee North America third-party manufacturers that's doing a lot of our other products, but the tea bags and tea envelopes is right here in Suffolk.
Yeah, it's amazing. You talk about food safety, and there's many different aspects of food safety in general. So people, when I look back in our experiences in the Navy, food safety wasn't a very big program.
Now, as quality lead North America, I approve this. I'm the vetting process, and it's a huge responsibility. But I tell you, Jeff, for your initial question, what prepared me was jumping in the deep end.
Yeah.
Did it come out pretty? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'll be lying if I say No.
Learn from failure.
Absolutely.
Failure is going to happen.
Yeah. And I'm still learning, Jeff.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah.
As a student that's out there, maybe paying attention to this, that you got to get a grade in school. That's just the fact. You got to get some sort of grade outcome in your testing, and
Yeah.
in the real world, when you're out there in your profession, it's a collaborative effort, and the failure is not to the point where you won't pass a class. The failure is especially if you're in a good team, they want you to learn from that failure.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So you're going to get guided and learn through those trials and tribulations.
Man, it sounds like you were at my boot camp in Lipton for when an employee started Lipton, whether you're quality, whether you're a quality tech, quality supervisor, um, and engineering, wherever you work, we have a boot camp. You go through Lipton. You don't. Food safety wasn't my first job. When I was hired for quality lead, food safety, food defense, but I had to learn the organization.
Yeah. Whatever field you may get into within the environmental health realm, go into that field that it's not going to be that bad.
It's not. And Jeff, you make a great point. My boss, and I'm referring back to her because it's fresh, and she said this. She said, I like the leadership. I can teach you quality food safety. You got a foundation in that. But I like the fact that what's attractive to, I'll say, from a students, if they're listening, what's going to be attractive for an employer is if you're willing to learn, because no one just walks in and know 100%. If you're willing to learn, you will be fine. That's the hardest
It's growth
thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like my youth soccer players. Are you coachable?
That's it.
If you're coachable, sky's the limit for you. Here's the thing that goes back to a little bit about the compensation. People question's real. That's a real question. I get it because I was a young kid starting at the health department, early 2000s, making probably my first year $28,000. That was not a lot. I made more as an E4 in the Navy than I did as a EHS at the health department. However, compensation, the skill sets I learned in the health department are with me today.
Can't replace.
But your acceleration to your compensation is pretty high. It happens
absolutely.
So cut your teeth, important, but compensation is there. So, and people, if you enjoy what you do, money comes.
And that was going to be my additional point to that, Jeff, is when you're doing this job, and a doctor will probably even say the same. Yeah, you get compensated, but your mindset is people, and it's a skill set. It's not everybody can do public health and quality, but I can assure you that if you're doing a good job, companies will compensate you well for your skill set. And you have to pay I always say you have to pay your dues. You're not going to get compensated as someone that's been in this industry 30 years.
Right.
Pay your dues, understanding that, hey, everybody started somewhere. And you just mentioned 28,000, but that's going to grow. You're going to go up. But learn your job. That's my advice. Learn your job. Understand where you fit in public health, and the avenues, like the programs: drinking water, wastewater, food defense, food safety, quality, pest management. Like if you want to, it's so many arms of public health. Be able to do them all.
So this is the last few minutes of this conversation, but we're going to do this lightning round. I'm going to ask you several questions, and it could be a one answer or a sentence answer. Are you ready? So this is our lightning round. Coffee or tea?
Both.
All right. Most underrated skill in food safety?
inspecting, because if you don't know how to inspect, you don't know what you're looking for. You can't effectively evaluate a process if you don't understand what you're looking at or what to look for.
Sure. Well, one piece of career advice everyone should hear.
Li- be quick to listen.
Rather than hearing, you listen, right?
Right.
Comprehension
Listen.
and
Absolutely.
be able to apply with that. Most often we just hear.
Because then it makes what you say more effective and people listen. Remember Denzel Washington told this to Michael B. Jordan. He said, if everybody keeps seeing you on TV, and I don't want to mess this quote up, if everyone sees you on TV all the time, they're not going to pay to see you.
Yeah. Be that special sauce.
Yeah.
So many of our viewers are students, professionals, parents. So what bit of advice would you give the population thinking about environmental health or potentially going into food safety? What are some advice to encourage them or be able to garner their attention to our field?
Food is just something we touch, whether we're cooking, whether we're shopping. Just going behind the scenes, I think if it's something we use food more than we use anything, and that's including water too, we use it every day. Why not understand the science behind it? And if we use this every day, global, there's things we can't get here because we don't have the right climate, we don't have the right elevation, so we have to trade and with partners. So that's what really made me want to deep dive into food safety, food defense. I deal with it all the time. When I'm in the house, my wife gets tired of me when I was like, cook that a little longer, and understanding food temperatures, and it's for your safe, and you minimize outbreaks,
and you're getting an income.
And you're getting an income
working in this field for that.
Working in this field on something you do every day, touch, and that would be my advice. And even with water, food safety, because water is considered a food. If it's in a bottle, that's free, students. Yep.
Who controls packaged food?
FDA. I like that one. I would say it's have a passion, and it's something. Once again, it's something you deal with, something you consume. Can't live without it. Why I gotta cook this temperature and not this temperature? And once you start peeling onions back, it's fascinating. I've always been fascinated with food.
Yeah.
And you're in this field because you want to impact people. That's why you're here.
We are in a practice that we are behind the scenes, and if you're a foodie, but we get into share our foodie experiences and experiences in that. And as we travel the world, we are immersing ourselves in the food culture.
Right.
But if you have any interest in that is this here is a field of environmental health.
I love it. One of the things with food safety and students, what you'll understand is that you'll understand why we don't have to cook a pork steak to 165
Not
degrees anymore.
Yeah. I'm not ready for pork tartare though. Not there yet.
Not there. You can overcook it, and it'll get you out of the habit of, once you learn the science, get you out of the habit of overcooking food. Because I used to do it's like, man, I overcooked this, because you're not implementing food safety, you're food fear.
Yeah. Food perception.
Food perception, that.
So, and it's a lot of it's cultural based too, right? So that's part of that. Yeah. Food science is a lot of science.
It is.
Toxicology, even my food science course, food safety and science courses, is pretty toxicologically heavy. And exposures and metals and biologicals, all that stuff like that too. So it's a sector within environmental health. It's also a major industry in our population.
Right here at Lipton, we have a whole team, because quality food safety falls under research and innovation, pretty much a lot of your scientists. But we have a whole team that, like, food scientists that do sensory tests on the product. What goes with this ingredient? What makes this ingredient taste profile?
Yeah.
brand
who gets a
recognition.
job just doing taste stuff, you know?
We got
Organoleptic testers, right? So that's I've seen those in those documentaries and food safety and stuff like that. There's a bunch of them that just because of their sensitivity and palates, they're able to be the ones that are validating those things.
And that's in our North American headquarters, Hoboken, New Jersey. They do professional tea tasters.
That's right, yeah.
Like wine sommeliers, you got professional tea tasters.
A little bit of hint of grass.
And they're amazing at what they do, but they have an environmental health, food science background.
That's right. That's
So
amazing.
they just didn't get that job. There are all these jobs, at least in research and innovation, you're applying the sciences.
That's awesome. Outstanding. Hey,
Yeah.
Lee, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks you so much. We look forward to actually partnership with you with
absolutely.
internships
Absolutely.
and site visits.
Absolutely.
And I hope this Lipton Tea and Infusions relationship continues on. And I appreciate to tell your leadership that we also appreciate here at Old Dominion University for being able to have time with us and talk about this stuff.
It's awesome, man. And I respect you. You know, friends, and Jeff's a musician, y'all, if you didn't know.
Music on Spotify and Apple Music still.
And I owe you a book. I'm going to shoot some documentaries too. Any way I can help someone.
No, we're looking forward to it.
No.
And that connection, and that's really for us, as for the program, for the students, for this area, major employers, not only with the federal government, shipyard, the industry in this area, health departments.
Oh, absolutely.
Very high employer market in this Hampton Roads area.
Absolutely.
And that's more opportunities for us. And that's why we have these Professions series to go on. So I can, again, have more conversations with my friends in the industry. And then I hope to have you back again to talk about more about some other future endeavors.
Y'all have some tea next time.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll spill the tea next time.
Yeah.
Right?
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yes, sir.